So let's talk about Reiki. Where did this practice actually come from? Who was the person behind it all? Today we're going to dive into a really fascinating origin story. And you'll see it's way more than just about a healing art. It's really about one man's incredible personal quest.
And this is the big question that really sits at the center of the whole story. Was Reiki just invented? Did someone just come up with it? Or was it something else entirely, like a revelation, something that was given through a pretty profound experience? That question right there, it's going to shape everything we talk about next.
All right, so to even begin to answer that question, invention or revelation, we have to start with the founder himself and this really, really deep personal quest he was on.
So the man at the center of this story is Dr. Mikao Usui. And his background is super important here. He was a Japanese Buddhist, and that really colors the whole spiritual nature of the search he was on.
Yeah, and this is absolutely key. Dr. Usui wasn't just tinkering in a lab trying to invent some new technique. No way. This guy was wrestling with the big stuff, the biggest questions in life. He was on a hunt for a much deeper meaning and purpose.
And look, this was not some casual hobby for him. He was a serious scholar. He spent years deep diving into all sorts of disciplines, medicine, spirituality, you name it. He was basically a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. But, all that knowledge, it just wasn't cutting it.
Exactly. Even with everything he'd learned, there was this nagging feeling inside him, Like a key piece of the whole puzzle just wasn't there. He knew deep down that the real answer he was looking for was still out of reach. And that's what drove him to take the next, much bigger step.
So that feeling, that sense that something was fundamentally missing, well, it pushed him towards something pretty extreme. It led him to what you can only really call an ordeal, up on a sacred mountain.
So, this is where it all comes to a head. His quest leads him to this one specific, very sacred place, Mount Kurama. It's near Kyoto, and believe me, this was no random choice. This mountain has some serious spiritual significance.
21 days. That's how long he committed to this final all-or-nothing push for the answers he was looking for.
And for those 3 weeks, he went all in. We're talking a really intense retreat on the mountain, just deep meditation and fasting. It was an act of total commitment, just completely surrendering himself to this search.
Okay, so after all that, after the years of study, the fasting, the meditation, at the very end of this whole intense ordeal, something finally happened. The breakthrough he'd been searching for all that time finally arrived.
Imagine this. It's the morning of the very last day, day 21. And just then, after all that waiting, he has this incredibly powerful spiritual experience. And the way this is described is so important. He didn't feel like he thought up something new, not at all. He felt like he received it, like it was a transmission, a gift, the ability to channel this thing called universal life energy for healing. And that right there is the birth of what he eventually called Reiki. The name itself, Reiki, literally translates to something like universal life energy. The whole practice is completely rooted in that one powerful moment on Mount Kurama. Okay, so that's the story. But why does it matter so much? Why is this specific origin story so critical to how people see Reiki today? What's the big deal? Well, it comes back to that first question we ask. For people who practice Reiki, it's not just some clever technique that a guy invented. It's seen as a divinely inspired practice, a sacred art that was revealed to him, not made up by him. That's a huge difference. And you see, that story does a lot of work. It completely shapes the identity of the practice. First, it positions Reiki as something sacred. That, in turn, really speaks to people who are looking for a deeper spiritual connection on their healing journey. And ultimately, it frames Reiki as something so much more than just a simple technique. It makes it a spiritual path.
So that leaves us with this really interesting final question, doesn't it? Whether we're talking about science, art, or spirituality, how much does an origin story really change a practice? How does it shape how we see it and connect with it? It's a pretty powerful thing to think about. Because when it comes to Reiki, the story of where it came from, well, that's not just some trivia. It's the very heart of the practice. Thanks for diving into this with me.